Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to accord you a very warm welcome to the presentation of our research paper on the Youth Olympic Games. As we told, the project was supervised by Claude from the AISTS and Antoine and Jocelyn from the IOC. The Youth Olympic Games is an international multi-sport event which targets athletes from 14 to 18 years of age. The first Summer Youth Olympics were held in Singapore in the year 2010, and the first Winter Youth Olympic Games were held in Innsbruck in 2012. The Youth Olympic Games should not be mistaken for mini Olympics, because there is competition of course, but the main goal is not elitism. The main goal is not competition as such. The main goal of the Youth Olympic Games is to give education to the youngsters about the Olympic values of friendship, fair play, non-violence, and refraining from any kind of doping. So just to give you an idea of the yoke DNA, we would like to show you a small video. So the yoke DNA is more of education and fun. And to how we structured our presentation for today is, in the first half we'll browse you through the research objectives which we have, and then we move on to the recommendations and conclusion, and then eventually we open the floor to the question answers. The first objective of our study was to identify interesting trends in the participation of athletes at Singapore 2010 and Innsbruck 2012. There were a lot many interesting trends in the data which were presented to us, and we categorized all that data into three main categories of youth, organization, and games, which helped us present our analysis in a more effective manner. So, and owing to time constraints, we won't be able to show you and browse you through with all the trends which we had unearthed, but we'll show you a few important ones. So we begin with the youth trends. In this, we did an analysis of the athletes who were present in London 2012 for various sports and disciplines. If you see here that there were 932 athletes who participated in swimming, and out of these, 159 athletes were eligible age-wise to participate in Singapore 2010. But out of these 159 athletes, there were only 72 athletes who participated in the yoga at Singapore. So eventually, we see that we found out came out with a number of 479 athletes who could have taken part in Singapore 2010, but out of these, only 193 participated. So we have a missing number of 286 athletes who did not participate. The reasons behind this could be because it's not just the age which determines your presence or participation in the Youth Olympic Games. There is the qualification system for each sports and discipline which you have to go through, and in addition to that, we have the respective NOC's sport strategy for their athletes, according to which they decide the progression of their and participation of their athletes in several tournaments. And here we see that it's the teenagers who are at the center of the vision of the Youth Olympic Games. So the team deemed it important to study the athletes who were under athletes who participated in the Olympic Games who were under 20 years of age, and we call these athletes as the young athletes. In London 2012, we see that around 12% of the total athletes who participated, 12% were young athletes or athletes who were under the age of 20. And in this, if we did an analysis on the NOCs, we see that NOCs which had a contingent size of around 100 or somewhere there, around that, had a larger percentage of young athletes in their contingents, whereas the larger NOCs had less percentage, which is quite evident because they do not figure in this top 15 list of the NOC contingents according to the percentage of young athletes in them. And the similar analysis was done for various sports and disciplines, and we see that for individual sports, the percentage of young athletes is quite high. And say, for example, in rhythmic gymnastics, there were around 71% of total athletes who were under the age of 20. And the reasons for this would be very different, as there are different requirements for different sports. And to delve further into this, I would like to pass on the floor to my friend Camilla.
Thank you, Harik. So during our study, we wanted to know and understand who are our athletes, what is their peak performance age, and what are the main differences between the disciplines and sports. So as you can see on the screen, the silver medalist from Vancouver Olympic Games curler, Christy Moore, she performed with the 6-month pregnant belly. So I don't think my partner will lift me with such a big belly. From same, I would like to continue with the skating and curling with these two sports, because the lower line for the male athletes is for the skating athletes, and the higher line is for the curling. So you can see that's also their career, it's much longer, and the age of peak performance, when the performances are the best, is for the curling athletes, for example, 30 till 34. So we will, for our estimation, focus more on the skating and skiing. So here from this graph, I would like to also tell you about the trends for the ice hockey, which is the green line, between the years 1994-1998. That's the strategy of International Ice Hockey Federation. Did the compulsory break of National Ice Hockey League, and it's allowed all the ice hockey players to participate at the traditional Olympic Games, so the event became unique and more visible. So here, please also focus now on the orange line, which is bobsled. The athletes are older than 28 years, and it's for future estimation. As you can see, that's only one athlete is younger than 20 years. So it's not the group of athletes we really focus. Same for the skeleton, which is second discipline for the bobsled. For my maybe personal passion, I would like to focus on figure skating and explain you the huge increase, 50% of young participants from Torino and Vancouver, because the quota was the same. The figure skating rules changed after the Torino Games, the judging system, and it gave a chance to faster learn the new skating skills, younger athletes, of course. So that will be important for our future estimation. And now I give floor to
Thank you so much, Camilla. So we move on to the second vertex of a yoke triangle, which is the organization. Under organization, we listed all the trends which formed a part of the universality places and the qualification system. With the universality places for the Summer Youth Olympic Games, this ensured that all the 205 NOCs were able to participate in the Summer Youth Olympic Games of 2010. As per the qualification places, it is ensured that each NOC, 4 athletes from each NOC get a chance to participate in the Summer Youth Olympic Games. and the qualification systems are devised for each sport and discipline in close collaboration with the international federation, so as to entice the best athletes in their respective age categories to participate in the yoga games. The graph which you see gives the percentage of qualification places which were given off as universality places for various sports and disciplines. We see that the top 3 slots have been taken by the combat sports of judo, taekwondo, and boxing. Regarding the NOCs which took up the most universality places which were on offering, we see that NOCs from Africa, which were 53 of them, took up 37% of the universality places. And unlike the Summer Youth Olympic Games, in the Winter Youth Olympic Games, we do not have universality places. Moving on to the last vertex of a yoke triangle, which is the games. In this, we listed all the new events which were introduced, new events, mixed NOC team events, and mixed gender team events, which were introduced in the Summer Youth Olympic Games. The main aim of all these 3 was to evolve the games so as to evoke the interest of the youth and give them a platform to interact and build friendships with athletes from other nations by competing in the same team regardless of their nationality and gender. There were 9 sports which had mixed NOC team events in Singapore 2010, and 63 NOCs had athletes who had at least won 1 medal in these mixed NOC team events. So with this, we end the first objective of our research study. The second objective was to make an estimation of young athletes who would participate in Sochi 2014. For this, we studied the percentage of young athletes who had participated in Torino and Vancouver. And with that, we found out an average of 11.4% athletes who could participate in Sochi 2014. We know the qualification places already, so we came up with a figure of around 3,000, and we estimate that 330 athletes who would participate in Sochi will be under the age of 20. Apart from this, there are several new events which are being introduced in Sochi 2014. We applied the same average to these new events and we came up with a number of 31. So eventually we conclude that young athletes in the range of around 350 to 360 would participate in Winter Olympic Games of Sochi 2014. The final objective of our research study was quite an arduous one, because the goal was to find out the number of Innsbruck athletes who would eventually go and participate in Sochi 2014. As we see that there is only one edition of Winter Youth Olympic Games which has been organized, so it was quite a challenging task to come up with a model and a hypothesis for this study. But still we managed to come up with 2 different models. According to the first model, what we did was, we made a calculation of number of athletes from Singapore who had participated in London, and we saw that it was 1.8% of the total athletes were the yoga athletes. So we applied this 1.8% on the total number of athletes who would participate in Sochi, and we came up with a number of 52 athletes. In the second model, we did this calculation on the Youth Olympic Game athletes who participated in Singapore 2010, and of the total number of athletes who participated in Singapore 2012, 5.5% went on to represent their NOCs at London 2012. So applying this average on the total number of athletes who had participated in Innsbruck, we came up with a number of 56. So our approximation is quite a generic one, but still we say that there are around 52 or 56 athletes who would participate in Sochi, and these are coming from Innsbruck. So we put our hypothesis to test and did an evaluated in a very detailed study of all these athletes. And to say much on that, I will pass on the floor to my friend Camilla.
Thank you, Harry. So we studied deeper 136 medalists from Innsbruck, which came from 5 sports. The ice hockey and curling are 2 team sports not included. So our criteria for study was try to qualify our athlete. So we went through with him to the qualification system, and we tried to find if it's possible that he will qualify. It was first step. Then we try to see his position in national team, because we fully understand that the qualification quota is given to nation, not to athletes himself. So from this first pass, we came with the sure maybe number 19 athletes from Innsbruck, and maybe till 51 will go to Sochi Games. Then we wanted to know these unsure athletes, how they perform during the last season. So we stopped study them in July. So we saw their world ranking or what the qualification criteria was. And finally, we estimate that 37 athletes till 51 will, from Innsbruck Youth Olympic Games, go to the Sochi Games. So, and now I will invite Mary, and she will explain our recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Camilla and Harry. With our qualitative and quantitative analysis, the team would like to conclude that Youth Olympic Games is able to firstly attract the best athletes of the world, and also further inspire them to scale greater heights. In addition, the Youth Olympic Games creates a kind of platform for the youth to experience a world-class elite performance. As highlighted in our research and our report, we would like to recommend to IOC to continue its great efforts to build centralized training institutes to support NOCs which have weaker sports infrastructure. Now, by doing so, IOC could actually create an opportunity for the NOCs to have closer collaborations, and at the same time can increase the lateral transfer of sports knowledge between the coaches and the athletes. Moving on, we have also recommended two approaches which IOC could adopt. Well, they are already doing it, but we hope they can continue this effort. Firstly, is to continue the evaluation of all the sports, disciplines, and events in the yoke based on the parameters that we have just identified. The parameters that we have identified here is not exhaustive. Okay, we encourage and we would like to have more friends on board to run through the data that we have and to give us more parameters. At the same time, we also like to IOC to continue the efforts to measure the impacts of Youth Olympic Games in the hosting countries and also on the stakeholders. Now, the aims of all this recommendation is to serve one purpose. The purpose is to measure the effectiveness of Youth Olympic Games. Okay. Is to measure the effectiveness of Youth Olympic Games, and it's primarily objective when it's set out to achieve in 2007. So with this, I would like to quote what Mr. Jagok has said. The Games will not be about competition. It aims to reach out to the youth today. I've only got 1 minute plus left. I would like to share with all 2 stories that to tell you how Youth Olympic Games has inspired our youth today. Well, the first story that we had here is about, we're very lucky to have the lead character here, which is Miss Camilla. She was a figure skater during Vancouver 2010. And then she was selected as a YOG ambassador for the first edition of Winter Youth Olympic Games. Now, she had a very positive experience during the sport, and that inspired her to continue her sporting journey, her youth, her YOG journey, and she wanted to contribute to the sporting world in many different ways. So this is why today she's sitting here. She's going through a program with the AISTS. Thank you. The next story that I would like to share is a young boy in Singapore. He was only 12 years old when Singapore hosted the Youth Olympic Games. Like many young Singaporeans, he was very intrigued and excited about the Youth Olympic Games. He so wanted to know what is it all about. So he heard about the news that there's this Olympic journey, the Youth Olympic flame that's going past his housing estate. So he rushed down with his camera and his flip-flop slippers. And then he followed the convoy. Unknowingly, he traveled 15 kilometers. And then he was asked why in flip-flops, and it was raining. Singapore's weather is unpredictable. It rain, it shine, it rain, it shine. So he was doing that for 15 kilometers. And he said, well, I wasn't planning to run for long, but when I saw the torch, I just moved on. So it inspired him. And then his actions or his movements captured the attention of many youth cheerleaders, the officials, the volunteers, and that they cheered him on and encouraged him. It became a whole family affair. Well, the next slide I'm going to show to you is he has his wish fulfilled because the youth, the Shogok community heard about him and selected him as the YOG torch bearer, and he was so happy. And he was later asked, why didn't you give up? You are not properly attired, you don't have the, you don't know what you were doing. So he said, but if you give up now, it's like you are giving up the whole journey. So what, with this message, with this replies, the team would like to share with you a message that yoke is the one of the first game created by the Olympic movement in 80 years. It is young, it's evolving, it's still moving, and there are many uncertainties and challenges. So we hope that Youth Olympic Games can continue to inspire the youth today. Last but not the least important, last one, we would like to quote this statement that we all agree is, let Youth Olympic Games be the games for the youth, of the youth, and about the youth. With this, I end my presentation. Thank you.